Hi, beautiful people. My name is Dr. Genti Okeyo, and I want to welcome you to my space. I use this space to share my 2 cents on all things related to higher education, careers in STEM, um, financial literacy, especially as they all pertain to um, African immigrants and the disability community as well, because I'm also really passionate about disability advocacy. So I welcome you here, and in today's episode, I would like to talk about something that I've noticed to be an area of a lot of questions and inquiries, especially for my friends and even some of my family that I've spoken to back home in Kenya. So before I get into it, perhaps just a little bit background about myself. So I do have a PhD in chemistry that I obtained from the University of Florida. That was after doing my bachelor's degree in Kenya. I grew up and was raised in Kenya and moved to the US in my mid-20s to pursue my graduate studies in chemistry at the University of Florida. That was quite a while back. I have, since moved on and pursued a pretty productive career in the pharmaceutical industry where I currently work. And so I believe I've gathered, quite a bit of experience along the way, some good, some not so good, but ultimately all these things, help to, provide insights into some of the things that perhaps there are others that, may be wishing to pursue, a similar journey. So back to today's topic, you know, I think to frame it as a question, really, it's you know, people wondering if it's a good idea to send your young new high school graduate as an international student to the U.S. to pursue their undergraduate studies. So I'll keep using Kenya as an example a lot because that's where I'm from, and that's the experience that's close to my heart, and that's what I can speak to confidently. So in the Kenyan education system, most high school graduates will be around 17, 18. So you're talking of individuals who are in an age range of 18, 19, 20, if they are to come to the US for their undergraduate studies. And I will preface by saying that, again, everything I share, these are my 2 cents, these are my opinions. I try to make sure that whatever I share is factual and or based on my own experiences. And so ultimately, I'll share what I think. And at the end of the day, it's up to individuals to assess everything, take everything into consideration, and ultimately, make a decision that's informed and that's best for their family. All right, so here's what I think. I think there are really three main factors to take into consideration. The first of which is that when you move to not only a completely new country but also a continent that's thousands and thousands of miles away from the only home you've ever known, there is a lot to deal with, and to navigate. The cultural shock is not it's real. And so for someone who is that young, 18, 19, even 20, I think that can be a huge undertaking for them to be able to navigate, not just moving to a new country, but moving to a new continent with a completely different culture and beliefs and ways of doing things. You also have to keep in mind that these are probably individuals that, besides being in school, where, in Kenya, most kids, for high school go to boarding schools, but those are very structured and sort of controlled environments where, as much as they are not with their parents, they're still, under the care and guidance of adults, teachers in those schools. So for someone like that to move to a country like the US at that age, I imagine for most that would be the very first time that they are leaving, the confines of home, the comforts of home, and being in this new place where now all of a sudden you gotta manage everything on your own. You gotta manage your finances. You gotta manage your expenses. You have to manage your schedules, and in a way that you're not quite used to. I will say, as someone who went to school in Kenya for my bachelor's, we do have pretty rigorous, programs in Kenya, and we have a great work ethic. But I think that those are the things that actually helped me to be able to do well here when I came here for my graduate studies, at that point. And so that's something to keep in mind, when you send your student or your son, your daughter, to the US at that age. Those are things that people maybe, do not really think about, but you have to take all that into consideration. And again, it can be a lot of kids we've seen too at that age come in, and they struggle a little bit with their identity. And so, do I try to fit in and be like my American friends and students in class, or do I maintain my African roots and be authentic in that way? The second consideration, really, and it's second, but it's also very closely tied to the last one, is that the consideration that undergraduate studies are pretty expensive in the U.S., both undergraduate and graduate. But today I'm talking about undergraduate, so we'll focus on that. When you consider the tuition, the cost of the studies, you're taking several things into consideration. So it's the tuition, and so that's everything to do with the school allowing you to be enrolled, and whether it's books, activity fees, and all that. But on top of that, because this is not home for you per se, you also have to think about accommodation costs and costs, living expenses. So you gotta have somewhere to sleep. You gotta have food. You need, just the basic things that you need to live. And then something that my Kenyan, friends and family sometimes don't realize is that in the U.S., actually, most of the time, having a car is not a luxury. It's sort of a need, depending on where you are. So let's say you come in and you've got an admission to a university that's in a small town where the transportation system isn't maybe as I don't want to say highly developed, but maybe as readily available. That means you need a car. And so again, you picture this young person that has come in and is navigating everything else, and they, on top of that, they also need to think about all of the living expenses, transportation, and all of that. And so it can be really daunting at that age. Um, you know, so there are instances where people wonder if their kids can get funding, and yes, there are situations where that's possible. You could get funding to maybe cover your tuition. You can get scholarships, but those opportunities are extremely limited. Most of the time, they're reserved for the really high achieving students. So if let's say you come in with an aggregate of an A from your high school diploma, then you might have some opportunities. And keep in mind too, we also have a lot of American students or students who are American citizens that are also highly qualified and are also trying to get into school. And so the competition is really high. And so you know, as much as there may be a small quota reserved for international applicants, it's still pretty competitive. So unless your family and your parents can afford to raise all the costs that are needed for your tuition, your living expenses. And again, like I said, I know there are situations where that's possible, but if we're being honest, for most of us coming from Africa, that is really a minority of the population. It could be, you know, not even 1% of the population can afford to do that. So um, if you if your family can afford to do that and be able to support you for the entirety of your studies without needing additional, you know, funding resources, then, you know, by all means, yeah, go ahead and consider it. But for those who believe that they would need to get external, you know, financial support in order to um, pursue their studies, then that's something really to consider, that at that level, at the undergraduate level, those opportunities are limited. And then, like I said, closely tied to this second point is that, you know, we all wish and desire and, you know, want to send our kids to study here. But actually, even before you get, you know, that air ticket and get on the plane, yeah, you gotta get a visa, a student visa. And again, in my experience and from what I see, um, being you know, given a visa, an F1 visa, as you know, most students would need, is a lot more harder if you're coming to pursue studies at the undergraduate level. Again, just for mostly the reason I just mentioned, because a lot of times what happens in Kenya, and I believe in most African countries, is that when you get, you know, admission, you have your I-20, you know, the family, friends, they'll rally behind you, raise, you know, the funds that may be needed to at least kickstart you off. And so, you know, maybe you go for your interview and you show relatively decent bank statement. But I think we've gotten to a point where the U.S., you know, embassy, and, you know, they can sort of see through these things. They can tell if something is really a solid financial situation, or if it's something that's merely being put together to get through this particular sport and, you know, get this personal visa. And so I think it's just a lot harder. And the reason why it's more difficult for undergraduate versus graduate is that, again, at the graduate level, you have more opportunities for, you know, funded studies. And so in my experience, again, I'll speak to in my own experience when I got admitted to the University of Florida. My I-20 actually included the entire funding that I would have needed for my studies. And so when I took that to my visa interview, it was very clearly indicated in my I-20 that I was going to get not only tuition funding, but I was also going to be paid a stipend to support, you know, my living expenses. So at that point, you know, it was very easy to verify that I wasn't going to come to the U.S. and eventually be a burden to, you know, the U.S. government, which is usually the consideration that they have to take in, you know, into consideration. So taking all these three things and, you know, kind of tying it together, if you ask me, you know, knowing what I know now, let's say if I lived in Kenya or in Africa and wanted to wanted to consider, you know, sending my child here, if I had the knowledge that I have now, I would not. I would probably prefer or you know, encourage them to pursue their undergraduate studies in Kenya, where, you know, we have a lot of really good universities, a lot of good programs, very rigorous, like I mentioned before, and it takes 4 years. You know, 4 years is not a long time, and then during that time, do everything to beef up their application for graduate school. So if it's something that requires having a portfolio, in the US for college applications, they look at the whole person and what you can bring to the table. It's not just about your grades. And so that's the time, during your undergraduate studies that you can really beef all that up. Yes, do well in class, but if you have opportunities to volunteer, do that. If you have even an opportunity to work part-time, I know that that's a long stretch, but again, there are those who are able to do it. That's when you do it, and build your portfolio. And then as you get into your the beginning of your third year of undergraduate, then really start exploring those graduate opportunities. And I will in a future video prepare something to talk specifically about the graduate admission process and how you can optimize your opportunities to getting admitted and getting your visa. But that's my take on this question that I think a lot of people keep looking for answers, and unfortunately, we live in an era of misinformation and misguidance. But also, I think that for those of us who already live in the US, we've sort of been unfairly accused of not wanting to share information or not wanting to welcome, others that want to come here and study. And so I just wanted to say that there are really factors to it. And again, like I mentioned before, at the end of the day, you gotta take everything into consideration. Look at where you are as a family, what the students' interests are, and what you think makes the most sense, and then make an informed decision. So thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate as I begin, growing this community. I hope that you can, stay along and, come along for the journey, and, support me as I continue, sharing my 2 cents. So please be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel as well. And I will see you in the next one. All right. Have a wonderful, wonderful day, people.